At Arizona State University, we've made online education better, smarter, and more personalized so you can go further in your aspiring field.
I decided to pursue medicine once I realized that ASU did have the online program for biological sciences. You're still required to learn the same curriculum. You're still being tested on the same content that anyone would be tested on in person. The comprehensiveness of the program prepared me so well for medical school.
Explore over 300 programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
If doing the healthy behaviors that you feel like you should do always feels like an endless, joyless, uphill battle, maybe it's because you think, quote, being healthy, whatever that even means, is an end in and of itself. An end that you should obviously want, that you should be scared of not achieving. But that's backward. Keeping our reasons for creating a healthy physiology in the proper perspective is so easy to overlook, but seeing things clearly changes everything about how it feels to do the hard work of putting more years lived in good health into your future. You're listening to the Health Courage Collective podcast, episode 208. Why are we doing all this healthy stuff? Welcome to the Health Courage Collective podcast, the show for women who are too busy to slog through hours of generalized, inapplicable, and often contradictory health information, but too smart to ignore that a few minutes of focused attention now can prevent years of suffering in the future. I'm your host, Christina Hackett, a pharmacist who doesn't want you to live on prescriptions, a certified coach specifically trained to maximize your potential, and a compulsive learner obsessed with preventative, cutting-edge, holistic, and integrative medicine. I'm on a mission to increase your physical and mental resilience so you can fearlessly look forward to your next 40-plus limitless years. Your time is now. Let's go. Hey. So glad to be with you today. I'm so happy you're here. I hope you're doing something fun right now as you listen. And how's your magnesium? There's about an 80% chance that you're low in magnesium, and moving into the 20% of people who aren't will help all of your cells and enzyme pathways and hormones and neurotransmitters and everything else function more smoothly. Today, we're going to talk about character. But before we do, let me ask you this. Do you play any musical instruments? I wish you could tell me. If you do play piano or guitar or cello or the recorder or the kazoo, what kinds of things do you do to lovingly care for and maintain your instrument? Do you have to blow spit out of it or wipe it down every time? Does it need a humidified or dehumidified case? Can you tune it yourself? Does it have components that need occasional replacement after being worn down? Are these musical maintenance tasks joyless time sucks that you resent? What would it mean to you to be able to upgrade your instrument to a world-class instrument? If you did, what kinds of things would you be willing to do to take care of it? And why would you even care about having a Stradivarius or a Gibson or whatever is the top instrument to you? Is it just because that's what you should want to have? Do you think that all of your life's problems would evaporate if you owned Ludwig brand drums? As you probably know by now, I'm all about you putting more years lived in good health into your future. I think that what we've all been told to accept as normal parts of aging don't have to be. You don't have to stop living before you die, despite what you've been led to believe by society or the medical establishment. You don't have to fade into the background as you weaken and wither away. You can write your own health narrative differently than how you've seen the stories of your parents or grandparents play out. I love this stuff so much. I think that the time you invest in up-leveling your thinking frameworks and healthy actions have enormous payoffs, like not having to spend all of your retirement time and money on drugs and doctor visits, managing diseases that could have been prevented or drastically delayed. But I know I'm not always clear about why I want that for you and think that you should want it for yourself. I think the health and wellness industry is almost always guilty of this, myself included, especially the fitness industry. everything that you're told is a good idea to do is based on the assumption that you want what their supposed end goal is. Fitness, hotness, abs, thinness, muscliness, enviableness. There are so many recommendations of healthy things to do that we all take for granted are the best way to behave, whether we can get ourselves to do them or not. But why? What if you don't care about making thousands of women hate themselves because their bikini body isn't as impressive as yours? What if your highest value isn't nickel and dime arms? I don't even know what that exactly is, but I've heard of it before, and it was said in a way that made it sound like everyone on the planet should do whatever this exercise is, because clearly everyone on the planet's top priority is having enviable arms. It's a little easier to see with fitness recommendations. So many of the exercises shoved in our faces are just cosmetic, and so many of the food recommendations we're taught to buy into are for losing weight. But not everyone wants to or should want to lose weight. Purposefully teasing out the end result and critically thinking about whether that's actually what you want goes a long way. It's a great skill to get in the habit of. Then, if you decide, yes, actually, I do think that's what I want, the next question is, why? Why do I want to lose weight or have calves that look like I stapled a T-bone steak to the back of my leg? I assume if you're listening to this, you do want what I'm hoping to help you achieve, which is putting more years lived in good health into your future. Aging at an elite level. Okay, good. We're in sync. But why? I often take for granted that you see the value in wanting to age differently than the population at large, but I don't often dig deep about why. But I think that you should. And I'm attempting to correct my oversight in a small way today. I think it's easy to just believe that we want to age well because our life will be easier if we don't have to take 8 medications a day. Our life will be more enjoyable if we don't have to rely on someone else to help us safely get to the toilet. It's funner to have enough energy to get through the day. That aging is hard, but we won't have to struggle or suffer as much if we've done the work to age well. Following healthy recommendations now will exonerate us from pain and uncertainty in the future and will live a life of constant bliss. Only we won't. I think you can feel that deep down. No matter how fastidious we are about living healthfully and doing all the preventative practices we can find, we're never going to get to a life free of uncertainty, pain, or hard work. There will always be some kind of suffering or sorrow or struggle. So what's the point then? Why bother? What do you think? This gets to some deep meaning of life type stuff, right? I think that they're questions worth grappling with. I love the quote that's attributed to Pablo Picasso, but like a lot of quotes, whether he really said it or not is not for sure. The meaning of life is to find your gift. The purpose of life is to give it away. Have you heard that one? I love it, but I don't think it's the fullness of the meaning or purpose of life. I'd invite you to really consider what you think is the meaning and purpose of life. I assume if your answer is maximal hotness or wealth, this probably wouldn't be your go-to podcast, but what are you out to achieve? I want you to decide for yourself. What I believe is that our life is kind of like Act 2 in a 3-act play, even though the actual play doesn't have a beginning or end, which is hard to wrap my brain around. Anyway, this is the messy middle of something bigger, and the goal is to keep evolving into the best and Christina-ist version of myself. And that's not easy. To evolve my moral qualities into something better than they are today, which is better than they were yesterday. As I chronologically and biologically mature, my goal is to mature my character. In episode 143, I read this quote from Phil Stutz. "We have forgotten that time is sacred. To the ancients, time was a gift of the gods, to be treated with awe and reverence. Elders were respected because they had aged in the stream of time. Time was to be appreciated. In time, all things are in a rhythmic nature, ebbing and flowing. In our culture, we have a contempt for all things that take time. Youth is prized because it hasn't been exposed to time. Success won after long effort is less desirable than instantaneous good luck. End quote. As women, we're particularly conditioned to see the passage of time as a bad thing, especially if you can see evidence of time on your face. Youth is the ideal. Anything less than that is a disappointment. But that's ridiculous. Time makes us better because it's an opportunity to mature our character, to become someone we're proud of, an opportunity that once it's gone, we'll never get back. So, if you feel like I do that the great work of your life is to refine your character, how do you even do that? Where do you start? I bet if you were given some time to think about it, you'd come up with some pretty stellar answers. Hey, I wanted to briefly interrupt to ask if you're curious about female bioidentical hormone replacement therapy, the kind that's usually started around the time of perimenopause. What it is, what it does, how it works, what it's like. If so, you should check out my Udemy course called The Basics of Female Bioidentical Hormone Replacement Therapy. The course goes over the pros and cons of using hormone treatment, which hormones are usually included with BHRT, how they're used, the lab tests that are used, some tips for finding a prescriber in pharmacy to work with, and how to develop a rough estimate of how much BHRT will cost you. If you've been wondering whether bioidentical hormone replacement therapy is right for you, it's time to close that open loop, stop wondering, and move forward with confidence. Enroll in my course today. As a listener of the podcast, you can get a special discount for the very best price. It's a no-brainer. I would just tell you the coupon code, but Udemy makes me change it every month. So check the show notes or go to www.healthcouragecollective.com/Udemy to find the special podcast listener discount code that's only for awesome people like you. Okay, back to the episode. In the book, The Road to Character by David Brooks, he tells the stories of people you've heard about in history, including Francis Perkins, Dwight Eisenhower, Dorothy Day, George Marshall, A. Philip Randolph, George Eliot, St. Augustine, and Samuel Adams. None of them were perfect. Some of them did some pretty abhorrent stuff, honestly, but they stayed in the game and they kept trying despite all their imperfectness and their poor choices. Their struggles with their own weaknesses made them great in the ways that the world needed them to be great, as the Chief of Staff of the U.S. Army during World War II, a social justice advocate, a President of the United States, and an organizer of the Boston Tea Party. One of the things I love most in the book, The Road to Character, is David's distinguishing between what he calls resume virtues and eulogy virtues. The world is pretty oriented toward building up your resume virtues and projects the message that acquiring a lot of resume virtues will exonerate you from pain, uncertainty, and hard work. They'll be what ultimately makes you happy. Resume virtues are what impress other people, even though most of us know deep down that in the end, it's the eulogy virtues that we deeply want. It's eulogy virtues that leave the world better than we found it. It's eulogy virtues that we want people to remember after we're gone. It's eulogy virtues that are worth orienting our life toward, devoting our best efforts, energy, time, and money to, worth suffering for, enduring pain, uncertainty, and hard work to be able to develop them. Some suggestions David Brooks gives for developing a mature character are to first recognize that we're all inherently flawed human beings. We all have a tendency to see ourselves as the center of the universe. We all give in to short-term desires even when we know we shouldn't. We all know what's best and still do the opposite sometimes. We can delude ourselves into thinking that our moral and spiritual needs can be fulfilled with material things. We all have a tendency to be prideful. And David points out that pride makes us more certain and more close-minded. Pride can even allow us to become cruel. Even though it's not a religious book at all, he says that the central drama of life is the struggle toward virtue and against sin. And he said it's that struggle against sin, which he describes as selfishness, prejudice, or insecurity, that gives meaning and shape to our life. I'm going to say that again. It's the struggle against sin that gives meaning and shape to our life. He says it's possible to fight the battle against weakness, or what he calls sin, well or poorly. And the purpose of the struggle is not to win, because that's not possible. It's to get better at waging the battle. The importance isn't how well you do, but whether you're willing to keep engaging in the struggle. What do you think? If a life well lived means to engage in a perpetual war against weakness, where our only job is to stay in the game and fight a little more skillfully every day, how do you think your daily battles will go if you have very poor cellular energy production versus great cellular energy production? If you're frail, fragile, and delicate versus if you're resilient and strong? If your channel capacity for hard work is spent managing physical ailments versus managing your moral weaknesses? David points out that even though we're all inherently flawed, we are all also amazingly able to recognize that and overcome our shortcomings. While we are weak, we're also strong. While we are bound, we are also free. He says the greatest virtue in the struggle against ourselves is humility. Humility is having an accurate assessment of yourself and your strengths and weaknesses. Humility is recognizing that your own abilities are not enough to be able to overcome your weaknesses. We all need outside help. Only when we're humble can we see the world clearly. Humility helps us to mature our character. He also says something I love, that wisdom starts with modesty and that wisdom is not knowledge. It's knowing how to behave when perfect knowledge is lacking, and that experience is a better teacher than pure reason. I love that. Wisdom is knowing how to behave when perfect knowledge is lacking. The exact things you should do to increase the number of years in your future that you will be in good health are not usually very clear. You can for sure use wisdom to navigate what to do about that and seek out guides with experience rather than just reason. While we have a natural tendency to seek out pleasure, we also feel a natural and innate responsibility to become more moral over time, to forsake pleasure in pursuit of excellence of the soul, purpose, and virtue. We naturally long to develop our character. David Brooks points out that people with character are capable of committing themselves to long-term things that matter over short-term things that don't. He defines character as a set of dispositions, desires, and habits that are slowly engraved during the struggle against your own weakness. He says that you become more disciplined, considerate, and loving from 1,000 small acts of self-control, sharing, service, and friendship. If you make small, disciplined, caring choices, you are slowly engraving certain tendencies into your mind. You are making it more likely that you will desire the right things and execute the right actions. But if you make selfish, chaotic, or cruel choices, then you are slowly turning this core thing inside yourself into something degrading, inconsistent, or fragmented. You can harm that core thing with nothing more than ignoble thoughts, even if you are not harming anyone else. You can elevate this core thing inside yourself with an act of restraint that nobody sees. Behaving with self-discipline makes you dependable, What I get out of this is that character is built in the course of your inner confrontations, whether anyone else is aware of them or not. So, if our life is about developing our character and becoming more moral over time, and the only way to develop a mature character is through our ongoing struggles against our natural humanness, and our physical bodies are the only instruments we have to experience our humanness, it seems to me that being a good caretaker of your physical body is a little bit like taking meticulous care of your Stradivarius violin or Steinway Baby Grand or Fender Starcaster guitar. Professional musicians don't resent having to wipe the rosin off their strings, wipe the moisture out of their mouthpiece, or control the humidity in their case. They don't think of themselves as a weak person with no self-discipline if they forget to check their pads or truss rod sometimes. They don't think that being the best at wiping their instrument with a clean cloth every day makes them a better person or will make musical perfection effortless. Can you see the parallels I'm trying to make here? We often forget that care and maintenance of our instrument is not an end in and of itself. We're not here to be the best wipers or tuners. It's something we do so that we have the opportunity to play to the very best of our ability. So our instrument isn't the thing holding us back from the best performance we're capable of. And maybe also out of gratitude for the opportunity to play at all. I hope this is a helpful reminder about why caretaking your physiology from a cellular level up matters. It's not the end game, and it's not because it will make all of your problems magically disappear. It doesn't make you a morally superior person, but it might give you more opportunities to discover that you're capable of more than you thought you were. There's a richness and a beauty inside of you longing for the opportunity to be expressed. There's also a little side effect that your instrument usually looks cosmetically better if it's well maintained, but that's not really the point either. An added benefit is that since character is about self-confrontation and a million tiny unseen acts of overcoming our natural weaknesses, optimizing your health is a very excellent opportunity to practice your mature characteristics. Whatever is hard for you about optimizing your health, it's different for everyone, is a wonderful graduate level course in developing mature character. I love in the book how David Brooks explains maturity. He says it isn't about being better than someone else, it's about being better than you used to be, and that maturity is about being dependable and straight during times of temptation. It's about going from fragmentation to centeredness. It's about making decisions without worrying about admirers or detractors. I'd invite you as you come to your next health choice point, whatever that's going to be, whether it's about standing up from your chair every 20 minutes, something you're going to eat, whether you do or don't work out today, going to bed on time, meditating. Remember that small choices engrave certain tendencies into our minds and make us more or less likely to desire doing the right things in the future. The more we repeat things, the easier they get to do. Thank you so much for being here today. Health is not an end. It's a means to an end, one that has lots of little opportunities that allow us the gift of being able to practice, in all our imperfectness, developing the characteristics of a mature character. I love this topic, so I hope you enjoyed it. Next week, we're going to talk about snacks. Until then, use all of your life experience to develop a mature character and don't be normal. Thank you so much for tuning into the Health Courage Collective podcast. I am truly honored that you have paid me the enormous compliment of your time and attention. I would be so grateful if you would share this podcast with someone you know and subscribe so you never miss an episode. This podcast is for entertainment and information purposes only. Statements and views on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Christina Hackett and producers, disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse events by use of information contained herein. If you think you have a medical problem, consult a licensed physician.